To start off, you might want to know, what are invasive alien species? So the definition is non-native species that threaten ecosystems. Some facts is they can have positive or negative impacts. A positive effect example is some invasive species can provide soil stabilization that helps the native plants. A negative effect example is the Asian tiger mosquito is responsible for spreading diseases like the West Nile virus. So the global cost to manage these invasive species was estimated to be about 1.4 trillion annually, and they threaten about 85% of endangered species. An example of these invasive species is the zebra mussels as shown here, and they can attach to other species along with boats, and they cover beaches. They can result in cyanobacterial blooms, and they compete with other fish for food. About the only positive impact is they can make shipwrecks easier to be found and are filter feeders. They overall have a negative impact.
Costs of invasive species. IAS have both positive and negative effects in the U.S. on regulating, provisioning, and cultural services. The terms used to define this are food, water purification, erosion control, disease regulation, natural hazards regulation, cultural heritage, and recreation and tourism. So let's look at regulating services as an example. One example could be pollination. Non-native honeybees are used widely for crop pollination in North America, and the services that they provide are worth approximately $14.8 billion US annually. However, so that could be the positive impact, but their negative impact is that some of the honeybees are an invasive species and they pose a danger to human health. Those dangers could be chasing people great distances from their hive and also inflicting large number of deadly stings.
Today I'll be discussing an interesting topic of the benefits of invasive species. When we think of invasive species, we often associate them with environmental harm. However, certain conditions, they can also provide benefit to the ecosystems and human societies. Cultural services refer to the non-material benefits that nature provides, such as inspiration, recreation, and spiritual values. Invasive species can sometimes enhance these experiences. For example, certain invasive plants have transformed landscapes, making them visually appealing and even attracting tourists. Now let's talk about how invasive species can contribute to regulating services which help maintain ecosystem stability. While many invasive species disrupt ecosystems, some provide unexpected benefits. For instance, certain invasive plants can help erosion by stabilizing soil in degraded areas. Provisioning services refers to the tangible resources we get from nature, like food, water, and raw material. Interestingly, some invasive species contribute to these services too. Certain invasive fish, like the lionfish, are now being harvested as food sources, turning an ecological problem into an economic opportunity. Some invasive plants are used in medicine or for raw materials in the industry. These examples show that while invasive species are often a challenge, they can also be managed and utilized in beneficial ways.
In South Africa, trees and shrubs have made a positive impact on the forest products industry. Due to evapotranspiration, they lost up to 30% of their water flows down their streams. These once successful woody plants invaded the native ecosystem of South Africa, affecting the plants they use for multiple things, as in their teas and medicines, later affecting the people of South Africa. In the left, you can see different geographical distributions of each invasion. The A is species abundance, B is species richness, C is invaded area ratio, and D is the geographic pattern of biomes, highlighting the more affected ones. And then in the Great Lakes had suffered from water purification. The golden apple snail successfully made clear wetlands once amazing with purification turned into algae-filled lakes. To take away more from the people, the snail feeds on rice seedlings, negatively impacting farmers and their farmlands. And on the right, you can see the more blue and more colored is the more cumulative stress that they had encountered due to the golden apple snail.
We see there is a significant increase in the invasion of these alien species over the past several decades. Statistics show that approximately 36% increase will happen between the years of 2005 and 2050. Many of these things are happening because of the exposure to bacteria or the events of human interactions, bringing these new species to new parts of the world. You may be asking yourself, how do we control these invasive species? There are many ways and resources to control the rapid increase of these alien species coming to different parts of the world. Regulating the trade could be something that would make us aware of what is going over international borders, whether it be a plant or an animal. Early detection, if this animal or this plant is in an area that it shouldn't be or cannot thrive in, is a way to stop the increase of the alien species coming to different parts of the country. Even eradication, like removing the animal from the environment quickly or destroying a plant, can also be an option, but something that we want to try not to do.
Two of the most common invasive species in Kentucky are the bush honeysuckle, which is the plant with the white flowers, and the musk thistle, which looks like a purple flower. They can be seen widespread across Kentucky. When it comes to invasive species, it is easier to prevent their introduction than to control them. It is important to make good predictions regarding which species will impact the ecosystem by understanding the underlying mechanisms. Intensive study and long-term monitoring of the impacts of previous invasions of the same or similar species would be beneficial to the prevention of their introduction. Why do we care? The consequences of invasive species and their impacts are global. They affect and threaten ecosystems, habitats, and species. They are a big cause of species endangerment and extinction after habitat destruction. Invasive species cause serious impacts on ecosystem processes that are important to biodiversity and human well-being.